know, and so that's why I do what I do, because I want to be able to help people navigate through that without stress, so that they can do what they do as business owners, so they can be podcasters, so they can be massage therapists, so they can, you know, run a bank, whatever the case might be. So.
Yeah, I've been getting into a lot of animation stuff.
Oh, very cool.
And it's been very, very fun. A lot of computer stuff involved with that, obviously. 3D animation specifically.
Yeah.
And so I've been in the realm of always trying to what made me think of that, actually, I forgot why I brought that up, but I remember you said always try to be advancing and evolving.
Yeah.
And I think that's where video is going, and so I am really diving deep into that, and I'm going to be producing, like, Vehement Visuals is also going to be producing like films and stuff like that.
Very
and, like,
cool.
That's what I see, at least currently. You know, we are technically an advertising agency. You know, if you were to class us in an industry, that's the industry we would be in. But we're actually, it's kind of interesting because we're also not. You know, so I've branded and sculpted the company to be a video production company, which, in the beginning, the first a couple years, you know, it was mainly focusing on just businesses and doing all that stuff. But now it's more just like production in general, you know. If you want a documentary made, maybe.
There you go.
I'm working on a really awesome podcast right now. It's 100% scripted. Each episode's like 40 minutes long. It's taken a lot of time because if it's scripted, you know, it's like if it takes you like a couple hours to edit like a 5-minute, 10-minute video,
Right.
You know, 40 minutes. Boom, extend that out for each episode.
You used your AI tool, though, to write all that out, right?
I was, I got distracted trying to learn the AI tool
Right.
and then didn't make any progress.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's funny because I was trying to create a software that could help me edit faster and ended up editing slower because I was spending too much time trying to create the software. And it's almost like another catch-22, you know? It's like, you know, it's like, sure, this AI can save me time, could save me, you know, this many hours, but if I spend 1,000 hours trying to create it, did I really save the time?
Right,
you know,
right. There's always that learning curve piece, right? So yeah, definitely.
And so it's like always trying to. Right now, that's what I'm struggling with the most. Like, if you were my coach, that's what I'd be telling you.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd love to talk to you about that kind of thing. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it's like, well, what I'm struggling with the most specifically is balancing R&D with progress, because R&D can create progress, but if you're spending all your time on R&D, then you're not actually doing anything that affords you to be able to do the R&D.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. So if you were my client and I was coaching you, the first session we would probably spend the majority of it talking about the two words that most people hate the most. You know what they are? Time management.
Yes.
And we would.
Well, that's what I've been working on really hard lately.
We got to break. You've got to break into all of your existing processes. We have to document all those things.
I
down.
am. Yeah. I'm doing that right now. Actually.
Yeah, good for you, man. Because a lot of people don't take the initiative to do it, and that's really where the matrix
in a
unlocks.
Spreadsheet.
Yeah. and you've got to be brutally honest with your time. You know, how long does it take you? So you were setting up earlier. If I were to ask you right now, how long does it typically take you to set up for this show from ground zero?
Yeah.
Right? Do you have a metric for that? So if you have a metric for that, then you can plan your time. And it includes everything. It's the fun, right? Like when you're not working, you know, when you're hanging out, I don't know if you have a girlfriend or a wife or whatever, when you're hanging out with your significant other, like, is that time in your schedule? It's in mine, because if I don't plan it, it ain't going to happen, right? I use the, I can't believe I'm going to say this on here, but I used to, early on when I was doing other things in business, and I realized how important time management was. I tell people now when I teach time management, I was like, if I didn't put the time in my schedule to go to the bathroom, I usually say poop, but
okay.
I would forget. Or eating. Eating was another one. Like, I would go a whole day, and all of a sudden at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, I'm like, wow, I'm really hungry. But it was, in the beginning, it was that bad. I had to schedule every single piece. And so you're right. You know, it can be time consuming. So if you're going to teach yourself a new skill, you got to time box that stuff out so that you spend an appropriate amount of time on it.
Yeah, it's like,
but not
like,
forever, right?
But and that's the thing with my editing too. It's like I'm always improving. I can always get better, and it's like, but I'm already more than good enough to where if I learn this little thing, it's like the client's not going to notice, you know?
Right.
So it's like balancing that.
And so then you got to ask that question, right? Learning that skill, does it optimize or create an efficiency for more time? Or does it
yeah.
does it give you an opportunity to raise your prices,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like a lot of times, people think that they're charging for their time,
Mm-hmm.
but you actually should be charging for your experience, your knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's again back why I focus on education, because my clients will go, how do I grow my business? How do I scale? Well, scaling is usually financially measured, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are some other factors that you can measure off of, but for the most part, it's financial. So how do you increase your prices? Well, you increase your prices by getting better at communicating the value,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe not just communicating it, but actually demonstrating your abilities at a higher level, right? How do you differentiate yourself from a competitor and say, this is why I charge what I charge, because my competitors don't know how to do this thing.
And I've been developing some crazy things that are very esoteric, with photogrammetry as being one of them. And there's, I think, a very badass application in photography that photogrammetry can be used that hasn't really been tapped into as someone's like business, and it's really cool. And I think it's just thinking that's kind of what led to that future trying to always evolve,
right,
and trying to be better about balancing that,
right. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think there's definitely an evolution in terms of content like this. We talk about content creation a lot, influencers and things like that. And I mean, let's be honest, everybody has a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you separate, yourself from what you're doing? And I think you guys do a great job because you're focused on a niche. You're focusing on businesses, right? And how do businesses function. And so you have to constantly be looking down the road a little further. And so this other thing that you're talking about is called what?
Photogrammetry.
Grammetry.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like basically taking photos to create 3D models.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Is that where you see kind of like the morphing things and stuff?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I will be using it to make stills, so you won't even know that I'm using it. But it'll allow me to have more flexibility in post. Kind of like how when you shoot RAW, it's like you shoot RAW. You've done. You're familiar with this side of the tech.
Absolutely.
So it's like when you shoot RAW, it takes the whole spectrum of the light. Instead of just baking it into what you see on your display,
right?
Which is what like a JPEG does, or what you see on like when you take a picture with your phone usually.
So you get more of a dimensional imaging.
Kind of like that's what I was kind of thinking with it. Is like if I could create the environment around the client before we do it, wherever the environment is, we could go downtown, go anywhere, and recreate this environment. Then I can have control with how I can affect the lighting, how I can affect the...
And then you insert the
post,
subject into it.
And I can insert the subject in post, and
That's pretty cool.
I can even take pictures of them while we're there. And so that way I can merge the two, but have more control. I mean, it's that just scratches the surface, and that alone may not be worth the technology, but it does... because just get this photo right, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
That might not be.
Well, it's like what we talked about before. Nobody wants to have the technology present, but they all want the finished photo, right? So
yeah, exactly.
you put up one of these pictures, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, how do I get one of those?" Well,
yeah,
it's going to cost you.
You got to learn photogrammetry,
right. Or you're going to hire you to do it,
exactly.
So yeah, that's cool.
And so it's like the applications there could be really awesome, depending on especially how things will develop with metaverses and stuff like that. I think that's just a field that's growing, and there's a lot of promise in it. And so learning these skills, I think, are going to be very lucrative for me in the future. So that's why I'm kind of invested in that. But like you said, you would sit and not eat. Well, last Sunday, I literally was practicing, not just like studying, but I was also practicing photogrammetry on myself, trying to make a 3D model of myself with it. And I found like I spent all day, 12 hours, on this when I needed to be editing I needed to spend at least 2 or 3 hours editing some client stuff.
Right.
But I was so sucked into this because I kept not getting the problem right, and like when it comes to like coding stuff, you can just like get really stuck into it.
Yeah.
And this is similar to coding because you're debugging. Like I'm like, I just took 110 photos around my face. Why is this not working? And it's like.
So why do you think it is that it drives you so much? Like 12 hours in a box to get that. What is it that like?
I'm fascinated about being the best video editor in the world.
That's cool.
I want to hit that.
That's cool.
And by that I mean I don't like that's like a goal, but it's not like something that I will like die on a sword for, it's like
sure
it's just kind of there as a motivator kind of goal, like kind of like a North Star, I guess you could say.
Sure. Well, it's like we talked about earlier too, getting 10,000 hours and anything makes you an expert, right? So being revered or viewed as an expert, has some value to it too, right? Especially when it comes to the whole craft of what you do as a videographer, right? As a production company. So that's cool.
And specifically video effects, VFX and stuff like that. I really want to know I want to be able to push the field, and I think I have the capabilities too, and that's just something that I'm striving for. I'm not exactly sure why, but
well, it's like you said, you think you have it, right? So change your language and just tell yourself you do have it. That you don't think you do.
Okay.
Do
No.
I do have the ability to push the boundaries.
For a second, I didn't catch it,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, now I got it.
It's because it's unfamiliar,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, you do have the abilities to push the boundaries of the industry and of this technology, and you will change the face of it. Maybe small, but you will make a change because you're focused on it and because you're passionate about it. So
yeah.
there's the coach in me coming out.